All right, so PUBG just published their newest dev letter. This one is titled Gunplay 2023. And in this document, they announced a new weapon coming to the Battlegrounds, possibly a new attachment, which there's a crazy theory about this. You're not going to want to miss it because it could drastically change the game. Definitely a crazy item that might be entering the Battlegrounds. And they also talk about the overall landscape of all of the guns in the game, kind of balancing those things, keeping the meta going and all that stuff. So if you're interested in this, definitely stick around. We got some fun stuff to talk about if you're still into PUBG like I am. It's kind of fun to talk about the guns and the state of the game a little bit for all the PUBG geeks out there. Here's the current letter. It's on their website. But before we get into all that stuff and give you guys some of the news, this is sort of stemming from an initial dev letter that PUBG posted back in September 22. This was Gunplay development direction, and they're kind of checking in on us almost a year later, which I like from PUBG, following up with the data. And I personally really like what they did here with some of the stuff, and you guys can see it for yourself. Definitely debate, which we had in the stream. Shout out to one of the members of my stream, Pistol, who was kind of talking about they didn't like some of the changes. But for me personally, I enjoy that PUBG is trying to balance out all the weapons. Because if you look here, back in September 2022, these are 9 different weapons. Well, it's 8 different weapons. And then there's the entire sniper rifle category. And look what's dominating the Battlegrounds right now. The barrel, or at this time, the barrel was, which makes sense. We all know that. And the M4, followed by the SLR. And you can see kind of a small sliver from the AK, the MK12, the Mini. The whole sniper rifle category here is like smaller than the ace being selected. And of course the AR is going to be the most powerful on the Battlegrounds because they're the most versatile, you know, short range, medium range, even long range. So that kind of makes sense here. But of course, and obviously some of these weapons were just being selected, in my opinion, too much. And I'm kind of with PUBG. Some people might like this, you know, sometimes you like knowing, okay, I'm going to go for the rocket launcher in Halo. We know it's strong, the sword. But in a game like this, I don't want it to be like you need the barrel to succeed. I've always enjoyed, in Call of Duty and other shooters, the variety of all the different weapons for me, and kind of the little nuances of each one kind of changing up the game. Sometimes I don't want just the best gun. I like to switch things up because I do play a lot, so I like to keep it fresh. And to me, it's kind of weird when there's so many guns that are clearly not as good. So I do like that they're trying to improve this, and there's a little bit of a distribution by kills here, kind of showing this a similar thing on this chart. So fast forward to this year, PUBG is talking about that they want to improve that and make it more kind of evenly distributed, and then also have the win rate be decent for all of the guns. So since then, we've seen the addition of the AUG, which was a major player in trying to balance out the 5.56 category and also bring down the selection usage of the barrel and the M4, which were the top 2 selected guns. So if we look at they've broken this down by ARs now. If we look at this monthly kill rate, now you can see there's a much more even distribution between kind of 4 guns. The ace is a little small, but we're going to count that in this. So the barrel still has a huge pie. The AUG is big. The M4 is there. They're kind of almost tied. Maybe the M4 is still a little bit bigger. And then the ace. So now there's 4 really viable weapons that are being used, at least in terms of the data being shown. And then what's crazy is the AKM still holding on with like a small sliver, but I feel like you do see that a little bit less nowadays. And then you have the other 7.62 in AR and 5.56 AR category. So the 5.56 one's a weird one because the SCAR is not that great comparatively to these guns. And then also you have all those other ones like the G36C, the QBZ that are available on only like 1 or 2 maps. So it's kind of hard to track that into the category. You can kind of almost take those out. And then you also have the M16, the Mutant, which are off this list, but they are trying to make them more popular. They just got a buff in the last few months recently. And now those guns, particularly the Mutant, are really strong. Then if we look at the SKS, the DMRs, a huge change in the MK12. We go back to 2022, the MK12 was just a sliver here. They gave it a buff, and the MK12 has just shot up. So this was a dramatic increase. Obviously, they probably need to do something about this. This is way too much of the pie for a DMR. But I do like to see that there's been kind of a change up a little bit in this. Of course, it was interesting, kind of weird that they took the AUG out of the care package instead of just making like the SCAR better. But part of PUBG's reasoning here is that they're trying to make some of these guns like more beginner friendly, and that theoretically the SCAR and the AKM are easier to control and are kind of meant to be almost like beginner weapons in the game, which I've kind of always agreed. The AKM was the first weapon that I was able to control the recoil really easily. And the SCAR is kind of up there as well. I mean, sometimes the SCAR still is really nice, steady AR to use, especially with like a red dot or like a 3 times at a distance. So I think that kind of helps in that kind of category for beginners, which is nice. Then if we scroll down, they show a little bit of the win rate here. And you can see that the AUG and the barrel kind of take the cake on that. And then a few of the other guns below. And then for the DMRs, it's kind of pretty much evenly distributed except for the SKS. It feels like the SKS doesn't really have a great home. And if you're going to go SKS, you might as well just go SLR. So that makes sense to me. I don't know what they could do to adjust that a little bit. But another thing we were talking about in the chat is that, in my opinion, I'd love to hear from you guys. I think that PUBG's weapon distribution right now, meta, balance, is the best it's ever been. I feel like you can take so many different ARs and be successful. The only one I sometimes feel like I have a slight disadvantage is if I have the SCAR. Otherwise, I feel like I feel pretty fair with every weapon. Even when I have the AKM, I feel like I'm going to be more accurate with my shots. And then same thing with the DMRs. The only one where I sometimes feel like I might be a little bit behind on is the SKS. Otherwise, I feel like any DMR in the game, I feel like I have a pretty fair chance of playing pretty well. So would love to hear what you guys think of the balance stuff. I appreciate this data from PUBG and look forward to see how they kind of keep going with it. And I actually prefer them trying to balance out the weapons, at least in usage/kill rates. You don't want every weapon to feel the same, but you do want them to be used throughout the battlegrounds, again, in my opinion. Then we get into the newly announced weapon. So I think they kind of hinted here that because the DMRs have kind of flip-flopped here and the 5.56 DMRs are being used way more, they're going to bring in, they didn't announce it, but it sounds like this is the Dragunov type sniper DMR coming into the game, 7.62 variant. So there's no official announcement here of what weapon this is, but you can look at it. Kind of has that VSS Dragunov look to it, and it seems like that's what it is. They pretty much hinted that this was going to be a DMR. And if you kind of think about it, it makes sense because PUBG's put in so many different guns into the game. So many different assault rifles over the years, the Mutant, the Barrel, the Ace, so many things. And they really haven't done too much with DMRs. The MK12, and that's about it. I feel like all the other DMRs have really been in the game. Was the SLR originally in the game? It came in pretty early on, I feel like. So they really haven't added too many DMRs to the battlegrounds. So it's just going to be interesting to see if they kind of fit this into the VSS category or if it's going to be another kind of rifle in the DMR category and what they're going to do with the VSS. Because it is kind of in its weird little like niche between, DMR and sniper. So we'll see. In any case, I think it's exciting when PUBG comes out with new weapons. So this was pretty cool to see. So we'll see how this goes into the game, but that's exciting. And then they also mentioned here that we will soon get to meet a new weapon and new gunplay features. So sitting here kind of thinking like, what new gunplay features? And then I remembered that in this dev letter, they talked about improving attachments, maybe bringing in some new attachments. Then I was reminded by my friend Survivor number one on Twitter, that I think in one of the videos over the last year, PUBG had flashed this screen of potentially testing out new attachments. And this was one of the things that they said they were working on, was an under barrel attachment. They didn't give any information if this was going to be like smoke grenades or an under barrel shotgun. But when I see that PUBG is mentioning new gunplay features, and some of this content has already been hinted through previous dev letters on social media, and it says that it's going to be changing the way we play, then, it makes me think that it could be something like this under barrel shotgun. So insert the Steve Carell meme of him shouting no, because I know a lot of people that could definitely change gameplay in a negative way. Everyone having access to a shotgun could be really toxic. You run into somebody with an M4, 4 times spraying you across the map, and then you pull up on them and they just have a shotgun underneath their barrel, fragging you out, which could be frustrating. And then also if it ended up being something like a noob tube, famously kind of ruined the legacy of Modern Warfare 2, one of the best shooters of all time, you immediately think, oh, but the noob tube kind of ruined that game because it was so overpowered. So who knows what it's going to be? It might not be that, but it does seem very plausible. And, but I will say that if PUBG is implementing either of those things, I think they'll do a pretty good job balancing it. You have to think that if it ends up being the shotgun, that PUBG will probably make it kind of weaker, like a sawed-off shotgun. And if it ends up being some kind of smoke or a grenade type thing, that PUBG usually does a pretty good job of balancing these things in. Like the Panzer, it's a one-time use item, kind of hard to use. So usually don't go too crazy with it. And then, of course, I'd imagine you'd be giving up your grip spot, you know, like a vert grip or an angled grip to take this. And there's so many people out there that, you know, wouldn't want to lose that kind of grip because all the sweats on PUBG on the battlegrounds. So again, love to hear what you guys think. And as always, thank you all for watching. I'm Blitz5, and peace out.